to another episode of Elaine A. Powers' Reptile Side Chat. Today I'm going to be discussing lighting and heating in the captive care of iguanas. Now, in my opinion, the lights and the heating lamps are the most important part of captive care. If you don't have the proper lights, you're not going to have a healthy iguana, and it's just going to be a bad situation for all involved. Now, today I happen to be wearing one of my green iguanas, Calliope. Say hello, Calliope. She's not entirely sure she wants to be the spokes iguana today, but hopefully she'll stroll over to my shoulder and come out and say hello. But you may often see people carrying iguanas around on their necks and shoulders. And you may be thinking, oh, that's just a great way for the iguana to show its affection for you. But in fact, it's more having to do with the neck being a nice warm part of your body, and the shoulders being a nice branch to hang out on. So basically, I'm just a warm walking tree to most iguanas. But let's get back to why lamps and lighting and heating is so important in the captive care of green iguanas and rock iguanas and spiny tail iguanas as well. That's because reptiles are ectotherms. That's the scientific term for cold-blooded. And what that means is that the reptile can't generate its own body heat like mammals and birds can. They have to get their heat from the environment, and by the environment, we of course mean the sun. So you'll see reptiles along roadsides, out on rocks, hanging out on tree branches, warming up in the rays of the sun. And then when their body temperature gets to the proper desired temperature, they'll wander back into the shade to cool off. So in captive care, we have to mimic that opportunities. So we have to provide an area for the iguana to get warm, but then an area for the iguana to go away from when it's warm enough and doesn't want more heat. And unfortunately, when people keep them in small enclosures or even aquarium, never keep an iguana in an aquarium, there's no room for the iguana to escape the heat. And so they actually can get overheated. Now, it's important that iguanas have a nice hot basking area. Somewhere 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit is good. And the heat should come from above. Popular in the pet trade for many years were these things called heat rocks. You plug in the heat rock and it gets nice and warm, and the iguana or whatever reptile you have will lay on it. Unfortunately, this is a really bad idea because they don't have pain receptors on their stomachs. So the iguanas, in trying to get warm, and they have to wait for the heat of the rock to permeate all through their back, they get burned. And so we would find lots of iguanas that had burns on their stomachs and the lower side of their tails because they didn't realize they were being burned. The sun does not shine from the rocks on up. The sun shines from above. So all heat elements have to be above the iguana, as if you're mimicking the sun. And they should be far enough away that you don't burn the iguana, but close enough that they're getting the full effects of the basking area. And then, like I said, there has to be a far enough distance away that the iguana can go down to cool off if it gets too hot. Now, iguana must be warm in order to digest its food. They'll eat, but then the food won't get digested and it'll just sit there and you'll end up with a sick iguana. So, nowadays, what's very, very important for reptile care are the light bulbs that say UVB. Now, you may be thinking, well, I got plenty of light bulbs around the house. Why can't I just use one of them? Remember, we're mimicking the sun. And the sunlight has these ultraviolet rays, both UVA and UVB, which are critical to the iguana's well-being. And the UVB is particularly important because it allows the calcium to be metabolized. So you may be feeding your iguana this great, rich, diet full of calcium-rich food, but if they don't have the UVB to make the calcium into bone, they're going to have metabolic bone disease, which I believe is probably the number 1 disease in captive reptiles. They just are not getting enough UVB to make proper strong bones and bodies. And that's why people are told to go outside and get some vitamin D. It's important for keeping healthy and keeping your body going as well. Now, the bulbs come in different ways. You can get just the light bulb with the proper UVB and UVA rating, and they now come, of course, in our little spiral ring stuff. But you can also buy them as a combination, and this actually happens to be Calliope's lamp, which is why she's allowing me to have her on my shoulders, because I took away her basking site. But this is a combination heat and UVB, UVA lamp. And I use this for her because she's free roaming, and so she has one spot that she likes to hang out in, and so I put this bulb there so she can get heat and get her proper ultraviolet light at the same time. The iguanas that I have in enclosures can have 2 bulbs. So they have one that has the UV light and then others for heat. Now heat, as I mentioned, is very important. They have to warm their body up to be able to digest food and basically just to be able to move. And so they have white light heat lamps, but I like to make sure that they have the opportunity to have some heat at night if they so desire. And so those bulbs come in 2 colors. One is the red, and this is an example of a red light. It's very similar to the ones they use in photographic rooms. And it's believed that they can't really see red light, that they don't have good night vision. But this is so bright, as you can see, that I suspect they can actually see the brightness of it. And I often wonder if that bothers their circadian rhythm. Remember, iguanas have that 3rd eye on the top of their head. So even though they may be sleeping, I'm wondering if the brightness of these bright red lamps doesn't in some way affect what their body is saying is full nighttime. I'm kind of hoping it's more like a full moon. I prefer the dark purple heat lamps, and these just put off a nice gentle purple glow at night, which I suspect is less distracting to the iguana in its sleeping, although mine seem to sleep just fine. Now, why is this an issue with these light bulbs? These are in fact the most expensive part of keeping an iguana. These specially designed reptile lights are not cheap, and unfortunately you do have to change them quite regularly. So before getting any reptile, make sure you do your research to find out, can you afford to maintain a proper environment for your iguana? Now, of course, if you have the opportunity to have your iguanas exposed to real sunlight, that of course is always the best. But many of us don't live in an environment where it's, it may be too cold. When I lived in New Jersey, it was certainly too cold to let my iguanas out, although they did seem to be fascinated by the snow. And here in the Sonoran Desert, it's a little dry. So I do let them out for real sunshine, and that's always a treat for them. But unfortunately, most iguanas are kept indoors, and so we must give them the proper care that we can. So remember, if you're going to get an iguana, it's a long-term investment in the proper care. And most important of that is making sure that they have the right light bulbs. They need the light bulbs that mimic the sun, and then they need the light bulbs that provide the heat as if the sun was above them. Never use hot rocks. Never have the heat come from below. So thank you. And you want to say anything, Calliope? No? You're hiding behind the leaves or the hair of your walking iguana. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Elaine A. Powers Reptile Side Chat. Don't forget to check out my websites at elaineapowers.com and lyricpower.net. Thank you, and until next time, have a great iguana day. Bye. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and share, and subscribe. Every time you comment or share one of my videos, it helps me make more videos. And the more videos I make, the more people we reach. And the more people who know about reptiles, the more they'll want to protect them. It's a win-win.